The massive crystal chambers of the Galactic Council buzzed with activity as alarms echoed through the corridors. Council workers rushed between stations, their various alien forms moving with urgent purpose. In the center of it all, hunched over his translation console, his forearms working frantically across holographic displays. "I've never seen anything like this," Veltar muttered to himself, adjusting his spectral analyzers for the 100th time. The signal had appeared 3 days ago from an uncharted sector of space, and it was unlike any first contact protocol they had encountered in over 2,000 years of galactic civilization. The transmission was chaotic, filled with mathematical sequences that proved intelligence, but the content made no sense. The beings called themselves humans and claimed to live on something called Earth, but their message was terrifying. "Elder Thexara, you need to hear this," Veltar called across the chamber to the Six-Side Council leader. His voice carried the strain of 3 sleepless days. Thexara glided over on her anti-gravity platform, her purple robes flowing behind her. "What have you found, translator?" Veltar activated the audio feed, and the chamber filled with sounds that chilled every alien present. The transmission spoke of ice covering entire continents for thousands of years. It described rocks, the size of mountains falling from space and destroying all life. It told of underground fires that could melt stone and poison the air for decades. "They speak of surviving these events," Veltar whispered, "multiple times. According to their records, their world has been nearly destroyed 6 times, and each time they somehow lived through it." Other council members gathered around the console. Admiral Corthell, the military commander, studied the data with his single, large eye. "This cannot be accurate. No species survives planetary extinction events." "But the mathematics are correct," Veltar insisted. "Their scientific knowledge is advanced. They understand quantum mechanics, genetic engineering, space travel. These are not primitive beings making up stories." The transmission continued, describing wars that killed millions, diseases that spread across continents, and natural disasters that happened regularly. What disturbed the council most was how the humans discussed these horrors. They spoke about them like weather reports, casual and matter-of-fact. "Listen to this section," Veltar said, isolating part of the signal. The human voice, translated into galactic standard, spoke cheerfully about something called volcanoes that regularly exploded in buried cities, while other humans simply moved away and built new ones. Dr. Zixmel, the council's chief xenobiologist, examined the biological data embedded in the transmission. Her tentacles curled with anxiety as she processed the information. Their atmospheric readings show oxygen levels that would be toxic to most known species. The gravity measurements indicate a world that would crush the bones of 70% of galactic civilizations. Yet they describe it as home, Thexara observed quietly. The transmission had taken months to reach the galactic core, traveling through subspace relays and quantum beacons. By now, these humans might already be extinct. The thought troubled the council members, who had dedicated their lives to preserving peace and life throughout the galaxy. "We have to help them," declared Dr. Nimra, from the medical division. "No species should face extinction alone. Their knowledge could benefit everyone if we can save them." Admiral Corthell was less certain. "We don't understand what we're dealing with. This could be dangerous. Dangerous." Dr. Nimra's scales changed color with emotion. "They're dying on a world that's trying to kill them every day. How could helping them be dangerous to us?" Veltar continued working through the transmission, finding more disturbing details. The humans described their young playing games that would terrify adult members of most species. They spoke of traveling to the frozen poles of their world for research, diving to the bottom of their oceans, and climbing their highest mountains because it was fun. "Either they're lying about everything," Veltar concluded, "or we're looking at the most resilient species in known galactic history." The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for caution, suggesting they observe from a distance before making contact. Others insisted that immediate humanitarian aid was the only moral choice. Finally, Elder Dexera made the decision. We will respond. Prepare the diplomatic vessel Harmony's gift with full refugee support supplies. If these humans are truly facing extinction, we must try to save them. Captain Zeftai was called to the council chambers within the hour. The insectoid commander had led dozens of first contact missions, but never one quite like this. Your mission is simple, Dexera explained. Travel to this Earth, make contact with the humans, and offer whatever assistance they need to survive. Take medical supplies, food synthesizers, portable shelters, and emergency evacuation capabilities if necessary. Zeftai studied the transmission data, his compound eyes processing the information rapidly. Their world sounds extremely hostile. Should I prepare for combat operations? No, Vexera replied. Prepare for rescue operations. Based on their transmission, these humans may be the last survivors of repeated global catastrophes. Treat them gently. They've been through enough. As the Harmony's gift prepared for departure, loaded with supplies for desperate refugees, none of the crew could imagine what they would actually find when they reached the third planet of an ordinary yellow star. Captain Zeftai's compound eyes stared at the view screen in complete confusion. The blue and green planets spinning below them looked nothing like the dying world they had expected to find. Instead of the barren wasteland described in the distress, Signal Earth glowed with life and energy. Captain, I'm reading massive power signatures across the surface, reported Communications Officer Rickson, his tentacles dancing across the control panel. There are cities everywhere, transportation networks, even artificial structures in orbit around the planet. Zeftai clicked his mandibles nervously. Something was very wrong here. The refugee supplies in their cargo hold suddenly seemed foolish. This was not a world on the edge of death. Sir, we're being contacted, Rixt announced. Multiple signals from the surface. They sound ... excited. The transmission crackled through the ship's speakers. The voice was warm and friendly, speaking in tones that the universal translator marked as enthusiastic rather than desperate. Unknown vessel, this is Sol Ground Control. Welcome to Earth. We've been monitoring your approach. Are you really? From another star system. This is incredible. Please respond. Zeftai looked around at his crew. Medical Officer Yithel shrugged her shoulders, while Science Officer Calvin checked his readings again. Everything suggested a thriving civilization, not refugees waiting for rescue. This is Captain Zeftai of the Galactic Council, Vessel Harmony's gift, he transmitted back. We received your distress signal and came to offer assistance. There was a pause, then laughter. Actual laughter from what they had assumed were dying beings. Distress signal? Oh, you must mean our deep space science broadcast. We weren't asking for help. We were just sharing information about our planet. But thank you so much for coming. Would you like to land? We have a delegation ready to meet you. The alien crew exchanged bewildered glances. Their translators had to be malfunctioning. These couldn't be the same beings who had described surviving ice ages and asteroid impacts. They landed in a large open area outside Seoul, surrounded by buildings that stretched impossibly high into the sky. The ship's sensors immediately began screaming warnings about the atmospheric conditions. The air outside contained reactive gases that would burn most alien lungs, and the gravity was crushing by galactic standards. Full environmental suits, Zeftai ordered, though he noticed the air readings showed it was breathable for their species. Just barely. As the landing ramp lowered, they were greeted by a group of humans who wore no protective gear at all. They were breathing the toxic air as if it were perfectly normal. The lead human, a man with dark hair and bright eyes, stepped forward with his hand extended. I'm Dr. Wan, he said, with a huge smile. Welcome to Earth. This is the most exciting day in human history. We've been wondering if we were alone in the universe for so long. Captain HFY stared at the extended hand, not sure what to do with it. His species didn't have hands exactly, but Dr. Wan seemed to expect some kind of contact. You're supposed to shake it, laughed another human, a woman who introduced herself as Dr. Ming. It's how we greet people. HFY carefully extended one of his limbs and touched the human's hand. The contact was warm and firm, nothing like the desperate grab of a dying being seeking help. We came because of your emergency transmission, HFY explained, his voice translated into the human language. You described terrible disasters, mass death, your world being destroyed repeatedly. Dr. Wan looked puzzled for a moment, then his face lit up with understanding. Oh, you mean our geological history project. We were documenting all the major events that shaped Earth over the past few million years. Ice ages, meteor impacts, volcanic eruptions, that sort of thing. You spoke of them as if they were happening now, Kelvin interjected, consulting his datapad. Well, some of them are ongoing, Dr. Mingy said cheerfully. We get earthquakes pretty regularly, and Mount Vesuvius erupted just last year. But that's normal for Earth. We've learned to live with it. The alien crew stood in stunned silence. These humans were describing planetary disasters as routine inconveniences. Yethel checked her medical scanner, wondering if the humans were suffering from some kind of mental damage that made them unable to recognize danger. You said your species survived multiple extinction events, HFY pressed. Mass deaths, civilization collapse. Oh yes, Dr. Wan nodded enthusiastically. Humans are pretty tough. We made it through the ice ages, the Black Death, 2 world wars, several smaller asteroid impacts. Every time something bad happened, we learned from it and came back stronger. The captain felt dizzy. His ship's computer had classified Earth as uninhabitable for most known species. Yet these humans not only lived here, they seemed to enjoy it. Would you like a tour of the city? Dr. Mingy asked. We have so many questions about where you come from, and we'd love to show you around. Seoul is beautiful this time of year, even with the monsoon season starting. Monsoon season. They were casually mentioning another planetary disaster, as if it were pleasant weather. HFY began to suspect that the Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. They hadn't discovered a dying civilization in need of rescue. They had found something far more disturbing, a species that thrived on a world that should have killed them all long ago. Science Officer Kelvin stared at his scanner in horror, checking the readings for the 5th time. The numbers couldn't be right. His equipment had to be broken. Captain, he whispered into his communicator, we have a problem, a big problem. Dr. June was leading them through the busy streets of Seoul, pointing out interesting buildings and explaining human culture with obvious pride. The alien visitors struggled with each step, their legs shaking under the crushing gravity. Meanwhile, small human children ran past them effortlessly, laughing and playing games. The gravity here is 2.3 times galactic standard, Kelvin continued his report. Most council species would be crushed flat just trying to stand up. But look at them, they're not even breathing hard. Captain HFY watched an elderly woman climb a long flight of stairs, carrying heavy bags. On his home world, that much weight would require mechanical assistance. Here, she was humming a cheerful tune. This building is over 500 years old, Dr. June explained, gesturing to an ancient palace. It survived several wars, earthquakes, and fires. We rebuilt it each time exactly as it was before. Earthquakes happen regularly. Medical Officer Yithel asked weakly. Oh yes, several times a year, Dr. Subin replied, joining their group. Last month we had a 5.2 magnitude quake. Knocked a few things off shelves, but no real damage. The buildings here are designed to handle much worse. Kelvin checked his planetary database, his claws trembling as he accessed the classification system. Earth registered as a Class 12 death world, the highest danger rating possible. The database description made his 3 hearts skip beats. Extreme gravity, toxic atmosphere, violent geological activity, dangerous weather patterns, hostile native life forms, complex life, theoretically impossible. Yet here were millions of complex life forms, including an entire technological civilization. Dr. June Yithel asked carefully, "What is the normal temperature range on your world?" "Oh, it varies a lot," Dr. June said happily. "Here in Seoul, we get from about -20 degrees Celsius in winter to 35 degrees in summer. Of course, if you go to Antarctica, it can drop to -80, and Death Valley can reach 54 degrees. The alien crew stopped walking. Those temperature ranges would kill most galactic species within minutes. Yet humans had built permanent research stations in both locations. "You live in those places?" Zeftai asked. "Sure. We have cities in the Arctic, research bases in Antarctica, settlements in deserts. Humans are pretty adaptable." Dr. Subin pulled out a small device and showed them pictures. "Here's McMurdo Station, where 1,200 people live year-round in Antarctica. And this is Dubai, a city of 3 million people built in a desert." Kelvin's scanner started beeping frantically as they passed a construction site. Workers were using tools that generated heat levels that would melt most alien equipment. The humans wore only light protective gear and seemed comfortable. "What are those workers doing?" he asked. "Welding steel beams," Dr. June explained. "The torch reaches about 3,500 degrees Celsius. Hot work, but the pay is good. 3,500 degrees. That was close to the melting point of some starship hull materials. Humans were working with it like it was a everyday job." They stopped at a small restaurant where Dr. Minjun was waiting for them. He had ordered food for everyone, eager to share human cuisine with their alien visitors. "I hope you like spicy food," he said with a grin, placing a bowl of bright red soup in front of Captain Zeftai. The captain's environmental suit immediately started flashing warning signals. His chemical sensors identified capsaicin levels that would be classified as a chemical weapon by galactic law. "This is ... food?" Yitho asked. "Kimchi jjigae," Dr. Minjun nodded, taking a large spoonful. "Fermented cabbage stew with lots of peppers. Very healthy. Good for the immune system." The aliens watched in fascination as all the humans at nearby tables ate similar dishes without any apparent discomfort. Some were even asking for extra peppers. "On my world," Kelvin said quietly, "we use capsaicin as a non-lethal weapon to stop dangerous animals." "Really?" Dr. Subin looked interested. "Here we put it in candy for children." The revelation hit Captain Zeftai like a physical blow. These weren't refugees from a dying world. These weren't even normal aliens living on a slightly dangerous planet. These were apex predators who had evolved on a world so deadly that it would kill most galactic citizens just by existing. He activated his emergency communicator to contact the Galactic Council directly. "Admiral Corsel, this is Captain Zefti, with an urgent update on the human situation." "Go ahead, Captain. How many refugees can we evacuate?" Zeftai looked around at the bustling city, the cheerful humans, the impossible civilization thriving in conditions that should have been fatal. "Sir, we don't have refugees. We have something else entirely. The humans aren't dying on their death world. They've conquered it. And I think we need to completely reconsider what we thought we knew about survival limits for intelligent life." The silence from the other end of the communicator stretched for a long time before the Admiral's shaky voice replied, "Please explain what you mean by Death World, Captain." Zeftai looked at Dr. June, who was cheerfully describing how humans enjoyed swimming in oceans filled with deadly creatures during lightning storms. "Sir, I'm going to need a much longer report for that." Medical Officer Yitho watched through the aircraft window with growing horror as Dr. Hayen strapped a fabric contraption to his back. The humans had invited them to observe what they called recreational activities, but this looked more like An elaborate suicide ritual. You voluntarily jump out of perfectly good aircraft? Ythel asked, her voice translator struggling to convey her disbelief. Skydiving is amazing, Dr. Huon grinned, checking his parachute one final time. The rush of free fall, the view of Seoul from 15,000 feet up, there's nothing like it. You sure you don't want to try? Ythal's protective suit immediately started flashing red warning signals just from being inside the aircraft. Her species had evolved on a low-gravity world with a thick atmosphere. The idea of deliberately jumping into Earth's crushing gravity field from such heights made her feel sick. I think I'll observe from the ground, she managed to say. As the aircraft door opened, wind rushed in with a force that nearly knocked the aliens over. The humans laughed and lined up eagerly at the exit. Dr. Huon waved cheerfully before stepping out, into empty air and disappearing. He just threw himself to his death, Communications Officer Rickson whispered. No, look. Science Officer Kelvin pointed down through the window. He's floating down slowly with that fabric wing. They actually calculated how to fall safely from this height. But what disturbed the aliens most wasn't the skydiving itself. It was how normal the humans treated it. Children as young as 18 were participating. Elderly people in their 70s were jumping with experienced instructors. What should have been a desperate emergency procedure was treated as weekend entertainment. Later that day, the aliens found themselves at a sports complex, watching what humans called mixed martial arts. 2 humans were voluntarily fighting each other in a cage while thousands of other humans cheered. This is considered sport? Captain Zeftai asked Dr. Tejo, who was explaining the rules with obvious enthusiasm. Oh yes, very popular. These athletes train for years to compete at this level. See that move? That's a perfect submission hold. The fighter can either tap out or risk serious injury. The aliens watched in shock as one human deliberately put another in a position that could break bones or cut off blood flow to the brain. The crowd roared with approval. What made it even more disturbing was that both fighters seemed to be enjoying themselves. On my world, Kelvin said quietly, this would be classified as mutual attempted murder. Here it's called Saturday night entertainment. Dr. Tejo laughed that evening. They were taken to a traditional restaurant, where Dr. Minjin had prepared a special meal to introduce them to Korean cuisine. He placed several dishes on the table, each one triggering warning signals from the aliens' environmental suits. This is our fermented fish sauce, Dr. Minjun explained, pouring a dark liquid over vegetables. Very strong flavor, lots of beneficial bacteria. Ythel's medical scanner nearly exploded with alerts. The bacteria count in that sauce would require immediate quarantine procedures on most galactic worlds. Yet the humans were consuming it eagerly, claiming it was good for their health. And this is soju, Dr. Sujin added, pouring clear liquid into small glasses. Traditional Korean alcohol. About 20% ethanol content. The aliens stared in horror. Ethanol was used as industrial solvent and rocket fuel throughout the galaxy. The concentration the humans were casually drinking would require emergency medical treatment for most species. You're poisoning yourselves, Rickson observed. It's just alcohol, Dr. Minjin shrugged, downing an entire glass without flinching. Helps you relax after a hard day. Want to try some? All 3 aliens backed away from the table simultaneously, as if the day hadn't been shocking enough. A thunderstorm rolled across Seoul, just as they were preparing to return to their ship. The aliens immediately began emergency procedures, expecting the humans to evacuate to underground shelters. Instead, people continued walking the streets. Children ran outside to play in the rain. Street vendors kept their stalls open, simply covering their goods with plastic sheets. The electromagnetic discharge could kill you, Ythel shouted over the thunder, watching lightning split the sky above the city. Lightning is beautiful, Dr. Woojin replied, standing in the rain without any protective gear. As long as you're not the tallest thing around, it's perfectly safe. Some people actually chase storms for fun, chase them. SciFi's translator struggled with the concept. Storm chasers travel hundreds of kilometers to get close to tornadoes and lightning strikes. They film them for science and entertainment. Very exciting hobby. The captain began updating his report to the Galactic Council, trying to find words to describe what they had witnessed. Humans didn't just survive on their death world. They had turned survival into entertainment. They deliberately exposed themselves to dangers that would terrify most galactic species. And they did it for fun. A human child ran past them, splashing through puddles while lightning illuminated the sky above. The child was laughing with pure joy, completely unafraid of the deadly electrical storm happening around him. That image, more than anything else, showed Captain HFY the truth about humanity. They hadn't just adapted to their hostile world. They had learned to love it. "Sir," he transmitted to Admiral Corthal, "I need to revise my assessment. The humans don't need our help. I think we might need theirs." The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been running for 6 straight hours. Representatives from 47 different species filled the crystal chambers, all talking at once in a chaos of languages and confusion. At the center of it all, Elder Thexara tried to maintain order while Captain HFY's reports played on the main display. "This cannot be accurate," declared Ambassador Nixtel from the Rigel sector. "No species evolves on a Class 12 death world. It's impossible. The data has been verified by 3 independent science teams." Admiral Corthal replied, his single eye focused on the streaming information. "Earth is indeed classified as uninhabitable by our standards. Yet it supports over 8 billion humans and countless other life forms." Dr. Zixmel, the chief xenobiologist, stood up on her 4 legs and activated a holographic display. "Look at these biological readings. Humans can survive in temperatures that would freeze most of our blood solid, or in heat that would cook our organs. Their atmospheric requirements include gases that are toxic to 73% of Council species." The debate had started 3 days ago when Captain HFY's first reports arrived. What began as a simple refugee rescue mission had become the most significant discovery in galactic history. The implications were staggering. "They're volunteering for what?" Ambassador Krelder asked, her tentacles curling with disbelief. "Hazardous environment cleanup, toxic waste disposal, conflict resolution in active war zones," Admiral Corthal read from the latest transmission. Dr. Jinwoo specifically asked if we had any challenging projects that needed attention. The chamber fell silent. Challenging projects in galactic terms meant assignments that were considered too dangerous for any known species to attempt. When I mentioned the radiation-soaked ruins of Kethmore, she asked about research opportunities. Captain HFY's voice continued through the speakers. She wanted to know if we needed help cleaning it up. Kethmore had been abandoned for 200 years after a reactor accident. The radiation levels would kill most galactic species within hours, even with full protective gear. Yet this human scientist was excited about the possibility of working there. "What about their technological capabilities?" asked Chief Engineer Vorthax. "Advanced but unusual," HFY reported. "They've built permanent settlements in their planet's polar regions, underwater bases in crushing ocean depths, and orbital stations that have been continuously occupied for decades. They treat extreme environments as routine work assignments." The council members exchanged worried glances. Most galactic species required extensive life support systems just to visit mildly hostile environments. The idea of living permanently in such places was beyond their comprehension. "Dr. Soyoung has submitted a terraforming proposal," the captain continued. "She wants to help us restore abandoned worlds that we've classified as permanently uninhabitable." Elder Nexera leaned forward, her 6 eyes focusing intently on the display. "Explain." She reviewed our database of failed colony worlds, planets destroyed by natural disasters, industrial accidents, or environmental collapse. Her team believes they can make most of them habitable again using techniques they've developed on Earth. The chamber erupted in discussion. Failed colony worlds were written off permanently. The cost and danger of restoration was considered impossible by galactic standards. There's more, Zeftai added. Dr. Dong Hyan asked about our military peacekeeping operations. When I explained that we avoid direct intervention in dangerous conflicts, he offered to help. He said humans have extensive experience in crisis management and hostile environment operations. Ambassador Yeltith from the Military Council stood up abruptly. Are they offering to fight our wars? Not fight them, the captain clarified. Solve them. Dr. Wujin suggested that humans could serve as neutral mediators in conflict zones that are too dangerous for normal diplomatic missions. She said they're used to working under pressure. The phrase was translated differently across species, but the meaning was clear. Humans considered life-threatening situations to be normal working conditions. What do they want in return? Elder Thexera asked the crucial question. Knowledge sharing, cultural exchange, and access to galactic trade networks, came the reply. They're particularly interested in meeting other species and learning about different worlds. Dr. Tejo asked if there were any interesting places they could visit. Dr. Zixmel pulled up a star chart showing quarantine zones, areas too dangerous for galactic travel. Do they understand that some regions of space are off-limits due to extreme hazards? I mentioned the Maelstrom sector, where gravitational anomalies tear ships apart, Zeftai said. Dr. Minji asked if we needed volunteers to study the phenomena from close range. The council chamber fell completely silent. The Maelstrom sector was avoided by every known species. Suggesting that anyone might voluntarily enter it was like suggesting they walk into a star. Recommendation. Elder Thexara asked finally. Admiral Korthel stood up slowly, his military bearing evident even in the low gravity of the chambers. I recommend we formally invite humanity to join the Galactic Council as specialists for impossible missions. We've spent centuries avoiding problems that might have solutions we never considered, and if they're too dangerous, Ambassador Nixdel asked, then we're very lucky they seem to like us. The Admiral replied grimly. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a species would be invited to join, not as refugees needing protection, but as the solution to problems everyone else considered unsolvable. Dr. June's response, when it arrived 3 days later, became legendary. Throughout the galaxy, impossible problems. That sounds fun. When do we start?